Hello everyone, I am Bharat, and in this presentation we'll see what Auger electron microscopy is. Auger electron microscopy, it is also known as Auger electron spectroscopy (AES), or also known as scanning Auger microscopy (SAM), or simply as Auger. The first thing to note here is the spelling AUGER. It's not Auger, it's Auger. It's Auger. It's a French name. Let's see how this name came in this presentation. So anyways, for now the present pronunciation for the word is Auger. So this is the outline of my presentation. This entire presentation I'm thinking to cover it in 2 or 3 videos. Instead of giving it as a one big video, I'm thinking to split it into 2 or 3 small videos. However, if you are interested to know the information on the entire Auger electron spectroscopy that I am planning to cover in the presentation, please go ahead and check out all the videos related to AES. So moving on, this is the outline of my presentation. Initially, I'll provide you a brief overview of Auger electron spectroscopy (AES) and how this technique has evolved over the years as a surface analytical technique, followed by information on generation and analysis of Auger signals. At last, we will see two or more specific examples related to Auger electron spectroscopy. So we have a photograph here to the right. The lady here, she is the first ever person to have witnessed the phenomenon of Auger emission. So she is Lise Meitner. So Lise Meitner actually is usually referred to in the history as the forgotten woman of nuclear physics who deserved a Nobel Prize but never got one. So we have another photograph here. We see again Lise Meitner here sitting on a sofa. So with other scientists, including Albert Einstein. We have Albert Einstein here. So Albert Einstein once said Lise Meitner is our German Marie Curie. So you can see what status Lise Meitner has in the history. So if we look at the history of AES, how it evolved, so it has been very interesting. The history has been very interesting related to AES. So the phenomenon was first observed, actually the word reported is wrong here. It was observed by Lise Meitner. It was way back in 1922. Meitner was an Austrian atomic physicist. So since she observed, the technique should have been named after her. However, unfortunately, it is not named after her. If it was after her name, we should have referred to it as Meitner electron spectroscopy. However, we now know that it is not MES, but instead it is AES, Auger electron spectroscopy. So the only permanent recognition she got was when the asynthetic element with atomic number 109 is named after her as Meitnerium. However, this element got its name almost 30 years after her death. So in the photograph here, we see Lise Meitner along with Otto Hahn, who was her nephew and also lifelong friend for research. So the photograph was taken during 1913. So later in the year 1925, Pierre-Victor Auger, a French physicist, made an independent observation again related to Auger emission. So he made another. This was another independent observation. Nothing was related to Meitner. So where Auger observed that there were electrons that were emitted when an incoming beam of X-rays interacted with the samples, and the electron signal that were coming out, he called them as radiation-less relaxation of the ion. Radiation-less because there was no photon emission, but instead the emitted entities were electrons. So this observation he reported in the journal Comte Rendu. So he gave a title on secondary beta rays produced in a gas by X-rays. So this was published in the year 1925. Since it was published in a journal, the observation was made known to a larger audience. Unfortunately, even he did not get a Nobel Prize, even though he was nominated for one. So later on, Auger started developing more interest towards cosmic radiation. So he went on to study more into cosmic rays and so on. And he was later instrumental in actually establishing CERN, which is the European Center for Nuclear Research, which is currently in Geneva, Switzerland. So the photograph here shows Auger to the left with Niels Bohr on the right. So who is renowned for his Bohr atomic model. So even though we see that the initial observations were made during 1922 to 25, not until 25 to 50 more, 25 to 30 more years, there was any development seen in AES. So in the year 1953, J.J. Lander actually thought that using these Auger electron signals, it is possible to do surface analysis. Or in other words, he thought of using these techniques in order to understand a lot about sample surfaces of the samples. However, the intensity of the signals were so low, so it was highly debated back then. Later in 1968, L.A. Harris started using an experimental setup for low energy electron diffraction LEED. So actually this experimental setup was very well understood and very well established back then. He made use of that experimental setup in order to understand and study Auger electron signals. And he also thought of differentiating the kinetic energy signal of the electrons in order to achieve higher sensitivity of the signals. So to see what these Auger electron signals are, so this is basically a typical electron signal that is obtained when an incident beam of electrons interact with the sample. So on the y-axis we see a number of electrons, and in the x-axis is the energy of those electrons. So when an electron beam interacts with the sample, so there is a huge number of true secondary electrons, meaning secondary electrons. True secondary meaning secondary electrons. So secondary electron emission, and we know that secondary electrons come in a in a higher number. So the energy of the secondary electrons is low, so they form the peak towards the lower energy side of the spectrum. Whereas on the higher side we have a peak corresponding to the elastic scattering, which we know is due to backscattered electrons. So in between the backscattered peak and the secondary peak, all the smaller peaks that we observe in the spectrum is due to Auger electrons. We can see here that the peaks for Auger are of very small intensity as compared to secondary and backscattered electrons. So the signal obtained is so low here, the peaks are so small, as we can see here. Then again in figure 2, another raw curve is shown here. Okay, so again Auger electrons is also due to inelastic scattering. So we see no significant peaks in the original curve. However, if we magnify it by 20 times, we can see the peaks here corresponding to oxygen, titanium and carbon. However, still the peaks are not very clearly distinguishable. The peaks are very small. So generally what is done is we obtain first derivative using the original signal. So again, this is the original same signal as shown in figure 2, but however, in order to obtain higher signal to noise, so we obtain the first derivative, and we can see that after we obtain first derivative, the peaks are very clear and clearly distinguishable. And to see that, maybe I just took this picture from a reference. Maybe you can see that it is supposed to be the same spectrum. However, we have the first derivative. It looks like we are able to obtain information on also sulfur here, yes, which was absent or which could not be determined in the original signal. So basically, by obtaining the first derivative, we are able to obtain a constant background, or the background is the noise, right? So constant background with a high signal to noise ratio. So the peaks are clearly distinguishable. Again, in figure 3 and 3a, so what is shown here is that in figure 3, again energy of the electrons is plotted against the kinetic energy. This is to show that the Auger electron signal is very characteristic of the material from where they come from. So we see that the characteristic peak for copper, nickel, cobalt, iron and manganese, they are very different. The peaks, the kinetic energy of the electrons at the peaks are very different. So again, since there is a varying background and a larger background with the peak intensity being very small, we obtain the first derivative. So if we observe on the y-axis, it is first derivative expressed with respect to the kinetic energy, and here we see that using the same signal we are able to obtain a constant background with clearly distinguishable peaks, more clearly distinguishable peaks. Okay, you can see one thing to appreciate here is the constant background as opposed to a varying larger background in figure 3. So again, these are the peaks and the spectrums for copper, nickel, cobalt, iron and manganese. However, one thing to note here is that the position of the peaks do not change when we compare figure 3 and figure 3a. The only thing changed is the resolution of the peaks. We are able to clearly distinguish the peaks. That is first major difference. Second difference is that we have relatively less background with a higher signal to noise of the peaks. So AES has evolved as a surface sensitive technique. What is surface? So so AES is a technique for the chemical analysis of the solid surfaces. This is to be pointed out. The samples that are typically used or more commonly used with AES are solid surfaces. And what is a surface? It depends on the context. One illustration of a surface is shown in this figure. So surface here is the top 1 nanometer of the material consisting of 3 atomic layers, followed by ultra thin film and thin film in the range of 1 nanometer to almost around 1 micron, and the rest of the material forms the bulk of the material. Okay, so surface is 1 nanometer in this illustration. However, these are not the strict numbers and it depends on the context. So AES is used for surface analysis or surface science, and the surface, it depends on the context as we just now saw. And when we say that, why surface is important? Surface is important because it is a boundary where the sample or the material inside the sample interacts with an external environment. This is really important in areas such as catalysts or even nanomaterials, where the surface properties are very important, and by modifying the surface properties you can change you can significantly change the properties of the material. Okay, so that's the reason why surface is important in in few of the areas. And what is meant by understanding a surface or surface analysis is to know what chemical elements are present at the surface, how much is the relative quantity or the amount of each of the element present there, and what are the chemical states of those elements, how the chemical composition changes with the depth, starting from the surface and inside and into the sample depth at a greater depth of the sample, and also the presence of any impurities at the surface and what type of impurities are those, and so on. These are some of the parameters that we are really worried about when we say that we are doing a surface analysis. So this is one classic example of use of Auger electron signals. So here we have an example of gallium oxide particles distributed on a silicon carbide substrate as shown in the figure 1. You can see that small particles, okay, they are gallium oxide particles, and the black substrate is silicon carbide. And at the center we have a magnified image of the same. We can see spherical particles of gallium oxide. And when we obtain two spectrums, one on the substrate and one on the particle, one single particle, we can see the spectrum. So the spectrum is the Auger spectrum, Auger electron signal. If we obtain Auger electron signals from these two specific regions, we can see here clear differences in the spectrum. So the blue spectrum is for the particle and the orange colored one is for the substrate. And we can see that the blue colored spectrum shows peaks for gallium oxygen, which indicates that the spherical particle is actually gallium oxide, and there is a clear difference. This shows the power of Auger electron, the resolution, the spatial resolution of Auger electron. You are able to obtain a chemical composition, qualitative chemical composition from an individual particle here. Okay, thank you.